support Tangaraju and his family and friends, many of whom are here with us in this room. Welcome also to the members of the press, and thank you for paying attention to this important and urgent story. This event is being live streamed. Tangaraju's family and friends have organized this effort to plead for clemency for Tangaraju from President Halimah Yacob, and also urge the Court of Appeal to review his conviction and sentence. So here's what will be happening for the next few hours. We will start by discussing the background and key issues in Tangaraju's case, which TGC members will share with you. And then Tangaraju's sister Leela and his niece Subha will address you, sharing the family's struggle for justice over the last 9 years. Nazira Lajan, who's the sister of Naziri Lajan, who was executed last year, also for a drug-related charge, will address you then. After that, we'll open for Q&A for about 30 minutes, and priority will be given to the members of the press. Please identify yourselves before you ask your questions. After the press conference, members of TGC and Tangaraju's family will be available for media interviews. At the same time, we'll have a clemency letter writing session for members of the public who would like to add their voice to our appeal to the President to spare Tangaraju's life. Following this, we'll be walking over to the Istana with Tangaraju's family to deliver our clemency letters together. Thangaraju Suppiah, a 46-year-old Singapore Tamil man, has been scheduled for execution on 26th of April 2023, this coming Wednesday. The Wednesday that just passed, his sister Leela received an execution notice, the first one this year. Amidst growing protests and international outcry, last year, Singapore executed 11 men, all for drug-related charges. Tangaraju was convicted in 2018 of abetting an attempt to traffic cannabis that he had never seen nor touched, and sentenced to the mandatory death penalty. His story is the story of a child who never had a chance. First arrested and detained for consuming cannabis when he was just 14 years old, Tangaraju has since spent most of his life in prison for cannabis consumption and possession. He was not offered care, resources, counseling, or any other form of support. As the international community has responded to the undeniable evidence and science about cannabis and harm reduction, moving decisively towards decriminalization, legalization, and regulation of the plant and its uses, it should outrage all Singaporeans to witness the grave injustices that Thangaraju and his family have suffered over the last 27 years. In addition to Thangaraju, there are at least 5 other men on death row at Changi Prison for cannabis-related charges. Some of them have come together to write a joint letter to the public and the government on why the death penalty is unconscionable for cannabis. I'll now read a few lines from this letter. It is undisputed that cannabis is organic and not a synthetic drug. We are here to highlight the low level of detrimental effects caused by cannabis to our health, as opposed to other illicit drugs which do not attract the death penalty in our country. We just don't see any justice in imposing the death penalty for it. We truly believe that effective measures should still be taken for controlling this drug, but the death penalty is too harsh and defies logic. We believe no other previously illicit drug has been decriminalized so decisively in so many parts of the world, most recently in Germany. Our neighbor, Malaysia, has also sent their delegates to Thailand to study and understand more about cannabis legislation in Thailand. From what we've read in the papers, to the best of our knowledge, no one here in Singapore has died from consuming cannabis. We'd like to emphasize that everything taken excessively has detrimental effects, even alcohol, cigarettes, betel leaves, etc. It is just so difficult to understand or accept that when countries nearby are enjoying cannabis in food and beverages and for medical benefits, our country is executing people for that very same ingredient. So that's the excerpt from their letter. TGC believes that the death penalty is unacceptable in all instances and must be abolished without exception. But as we work on death penalty cases, we have come to realize that many other outrageous forms of injustice that accused persons face in addition to the inherent cruelty of the sentence of death. Thangaraju's case is a particularly horrible one. So now I'll ask Rocky from TJC to explain some of the most alarming aspects of Thangaraju's case legally.
Thanks, Koki. Hi everyone, I'm Rocky from TJC. So I'm going to highlight a couple of issues to do with Tangaraju's conviction. As Koki has really highlighted, he had neither seen or touched the drugs. Despite that, they had convicted him to a mandatory death sentence on the charge of abetting by conspiracy to traffic drugs to himself. Right, and I want to highlight that, in my view, like abetting and DJC's view broadly, abetment by conspiracy carries a very low bar for conviction. Effectively, it's just proof that someone intended to receive the drugs, right? It doesn't require evidence that someone intends to traffic drugs onwards. Right? If anything, the bar for conviction of someone that has never seen or touched drugs, the drugs in question, ought to be a lot higher, right, than someone who has it or who's holding on to it. So I think that's the starting point of the analysis here, right? And I think when we go through the large number of inconsistencies in Tangaraju's case, in terms of the evidence, I would like everyone here to consider it in light of the point that every criminal conviction needs to be based on the standard of beyond reasonable doubt. And I think on the face of it, in our view, it just simply doesn't meet that standard. Right. So, first thing first is actually what is the basis of the conviction of Tangaraju if he had never seen or touched the drugs? Right. So the main finding in the court trial is the issue of the full numbers. Right. Finding that two numbers saved by Morgan and Suresh, other people involved in the case, belonged to him. Morgan was the person who was caught carrying the drugs, and ultimately CNB arrested him before Morgan could deliver it. So Morgan made the assertion that India, the supposed owner of the drugs, the supposed intended recipient of the drugs that was in the end supposedly Tangaraju, gave him a phone number to contact him, which Tangaraju said was his. Right, and it's also, the conviction was also based on Suresh's testimony that Morgan had instructed him to go to West Coast Park to check if there was anyone there. Right, but I want to highlight the inconsistencies in the testimony provided. So first about the phone numbers. Right, so first of all, the phone number evidence is actually surprisingly incomplete. There's no specific analysis that was conducted on the phones alleged to be Tangaraju's. Right, these phones were never found. Right, second, the whole of the phone number evidence, the fact that there was two phone numbers, the whole evidence is circumstantial. Right, it's based on the fact that both numbers were saved together on each of Morgan's and Suresh's phone. Right, on the night when Morgan was arrested, Morgan, Suresh, and India communicated via one phone number. But this is the phone number that Tangaraju said was not his. There is no direct evidence that he actually owns his phone. Right? Yeah. So second issue I want to point out is actually the quality of Suresh's testimony. So Suresh is the person who supposedly Tangaraju instructed to go to the toilet at West Coast Park McDonald's to supposedly, allegedly to receive the drugs on behalf of Tangaraju. The issue is that in Suresh's testimony, there's actually no mention of the issue of drugs. Or according to Suresh's testimony, all Tangaraju said was, go to West Coast Park McDonald's and check if anyone's in the toilet. There's no mention of drugs. Second, Suresh's testimony in court is actually pretty weak. Right? They had to rely on a field diary of the police officers to fill in the gaps in his testimony. Right? And surely Suresh's testimony should be treated with caution, right? He had a clear incentive to lie for the obvious reason that he wished to escape the death sentence that he would have faced. Right? Third is the issue of who actually ordered the drugs. Right? If you read the judgment, you see the unaddressed question of who Selva is. Selva is supposedly the person, the Malaysian, who passed the drugs to Morgan. There's no evidence that Tangaraju had actually ordered the drugs from Selva. Right? And finally, I think this is a lot to do with how Singapore's justice system on the setup and the issue of criminal procedure here is the issue of statements, right? So there were, apart from Tangaraju, there were 4 other people involved in the case. Morgan, who was holding on to the drugs, Suresh, who was supposed to go to the toilet, Sashi, who was accompanying Suresh, and Selina, who was with Morgan in the car. Note that of these 4 people, 3 of them were given a discharge not amounting to acquittal, right? And discharge not amounting to acquittal for the conspiracy charge, right? While basically it means that they walk free, right? Right, and Morgan pleaded guilty to a charge of possession for the purpose of trafficking of 499.99 grams. So just under the mandatory death penalty threshold. And obviously this is the exercise of the public prosecutor's discretion to reduce that charge. But certainly it raises questions about actually what, about how does it affect Tangaraju's case. The second issue about these 4 persons' involvement is that there are no contemporaneous statements provided from these parties. In other words, the statements that were taken from Morgan, Suresh, Sashi, and Selina at the point at which they were arrested were never provided or tendered to court. Right? The prosecution only tendered 1 statement of Morgan's in 2016, which was years after he pleaded guilty and was already serving a prison sentence. And this was a very short 2-page statement. And the prosecution also offered 1 statement of Suresh, also taken in 2016, to the defense counsel, and that was in the middle of the trial. Right? So while this issue around the statements was litigated as part of a separate kind of lawsuit by Thangaraju, and actually the judge found that they were not necessary for the conviction, I think we find this fundamentally shocking. Right? Of course, part of this finding by the judge is based on the extremely high bar required to reopen criminal cases. Right? So the standard in Singapore law is that the evidence needs to draw to the conclusion that there is a miscarriage of justice. But of course, that's entirely circular, right? If you don't have the statements in front of you, then how will you be able to say that there is a miscarriage of justice? Right? And the issue is that if those police statements taken at the time of Morgan, Suresh, Selina, and Sashi's arrest do not mention the existence of the second phone number, or Tangaraju is not mentioned, then those omissions in those statements would actually impeach Suresh's and Morgan's accounts in court. But of course, at this stage, we'll never see those statements. Yeah. So I think that's the summary of the legal issues with this. It's quite a lot. But I think at the end of the day, the point is that I think it's clear on the face of it to us that given the large number of inconsistencies in this case, that surely the conviction does not meet the standard of beyond reasonable doubt. Thank you.
So, like Rocky's explained, there is a very high risk that this conviction and sentence is unsafe, which really heightens the chances that an innocent person can be executed by the state in a few days. Just to add on a few other things that were particularly alarming in Tangaraju's case, he was not provided with a Tamil interpreter during his investigations, despite repeatedly asking for one. He said in court that he did not understand parts of the statement that were read back to him and that he was made to sign. In addition to this, I think a lot of, for those of us who work with people who are incarcerated and on death row, it's quite normal for us to register that actually none of them had lawyers at the point of being investigated. But I think to many members of the public, this is actually a big shock because we assume that people have access to lawyers when they're being questioned by the police. So all his statements, and this is especially alarming in a capital case, the stakes are so high, you are facing death and you're being interrogated without the presence of a lawyer to advise you on your rights. Many people who are, even who are very well educated, whose English is their first language, know their legal rights, find police investigations extremely intimidating. And so just imagine the power differential between someone in Thangaraj's position facing a capital charge, being interrogated for hours on end, repeatedly, having his statements taken, recorded, and signed without any lawyer to advise him of these rights. And these are the statements based on which the prosecution builds their case. And the prosecution is allowed to bring this evidence before the court and use it to secure a conviction. Like just across the border in Malaysia, if the police interview an accused person and take their statement without the presence of a lawyer. The defense is allowed to use that statement, but the prosecution is not allowed to. Right? The prosecution is not allowed to secure someone's conviction on the basis of statements taken without a lawyer. So there are huge questions about access to justice here, even on an everyday basis, and all of this becomes even more devastating in a death penalty case. Yeah. And the other thing that Rocky highlighted is also that Tangaraju was convicted for the amount of over 1,000 grams of cannabis, when the person who was caught with the drugs was convicted only of 499 grams. So, from the position of the families, all of this feels really arbitrary, right? You just think about it as a lay person. Someone is caught with a bundle of drugs. This person gets a different charge, a different sentence that is so much lower, and then their loved one is sentenced to death. So, and this is what prosecutorial discretion looks like from the perspective of ordinary people. It looks like arbitrariness, and it's arbitrariness based on which life and death are decided. Now we'll have some comments from Suppiah and Leela. Suppiah is Thanggaraju's niece. She's the daughter of Leela, who is his older sister. And so I'll be asking them some questions in Tamil, just to support them with the statements that they want to make, and then I will translate it into English as well. Suppiah, எதுக்கு உங்க மாமாக்கு வந்து stay order கொடுக்கணுங்கிறது நீங்க முக்கியம் நினைக்கிறீங்க?
கேஸ் வந்து அவங்க கேஸ் வந்து ஒழுங்காக அனலைஸ் பண்ணலை ப்ராப்பர் லாயர். ஸோ நாங்கள் எப்போ பார்த்தாலும் அந்த கோர்ட் ரெக்கார்டு கேட்டாங்க. ஸோ சில பாயிண்ட்ஸ் கொடுத்தாங்க, தே நெவர் ஃபைட் ஃபார் தட். ஸோ வேறு விஷயம் ஃபோன் நம்பரை வச்சு மட்டும் வந்து சார்ஜ் பண்ணுறது இட்ஸ் அன்ஃபேர்.
So it's unfair to charge him just based on the fact that they say the phone number belonged to him. There was a lot of points that the family raised and Tangaraju raised that was never brought before the court. He also asked to see the witness statements and other evidence like call registries and recordings, and none of that was produced to him, even though the prosecution had them in their possession.
So when we were Clemency, right? So the judge was asking why we did not speak all this in fine, right? So but we wasn't given a chance to lay out all our evidence during the trial. So they are not allowing us to actually try.
So I think what Suppiah is referring to is that the appeal lawyer raised a lot of the points that were not brought up in the trial. Yeah? And when the appeal lawyer raised these issues, the court did not say that these are not valid issues. They just said this should have been brought up at an earlier stage. So you see how unjust it feels to the family that these are valid concerns, valid challenges, but just because the trial lawyer failed to raise it, the court refused to hear it on appeal and consider it fairly. So, and the same happened when they appealed for clemency. Right? The family just has repeatedly been told this should have been brought up earlier. They have not been told this is not valid, this is not important, this is not a relevant point. Just you didn't bring it up earlier. So the family's in this predicament where he's facing death because something wasn't brought up at an earlier point, rather than because there's no substance there.
So I also because was a broken video because he really did like the height, weight, the skin color, everything does not match our uncle. He really said that he doesn't know our uncle, and yet why is he still charged?
So I think you've heard that Morgan's testimony was something that was quite significant in the case, and he said that he had never seen Tangaraju, he did not know how he looked, and the person that he was asked to deliver to, the way he described this person does not match the way that Tangaraju looks at all in terms of height, weight, skin color, etc.
So that's the reason why he just want to get a stay order to analyze this case and give for each one.
So the family would like, is urging the court to get a retrial, and for that they need a stay of execution.
Because every lawyer that we met, everyone just like say that they are unable to take over this case. All are afraid, thinking that because they might lose. But there's a lot of points that actually they can fight. My mom like went up and down, every week to just fight for a lawyer. So I before like us to be lawyer. So all this while we were, why now that you want to come forward? All this while we wanted help, all never come and help us. So that's the reason why now we want to and we want a proper and good lawyer who can fight for this. And hope we are going to come. Because he did not do anything. All just blaming for what happened.
Akan plea bargain
lawyer வந்து 85% வந்து நம்ம ஜெயிச்சிட்டோம். ஸோ நீ வந்து இந்த ஆஃபரை வந்து எடுக்க போறியா இல்லை ஃபைட் பண்ண போறியா கேட்டுட்டாங்க மாமாவை. ஸோ எங்கள் மாமா வந்து லாயரை கேட்டாங்க, நீ தான் லாயர், நீ வந்து எனக்கு சொல்லி என்ன இருக்கணும். ஸோ அவங்க மாற்றி மாற்றி நீ சொல்லு நான் சொல்லு நீ சொல்லு அந்த மாதிரி போயிட்டு அப்போது கடைசியில் மாமா சொன்னார், சரி ஃபைட் பண்ண முடியுமா, ஸோ ஃபைட் பண்ணலாம். ஸோ சொன்னனால தான் ஃபைட் பண்ண ஆரம்பிச்சாங்க. ஸோ அதனால தான் அந்த 12 வருஷம் வந்து ஆஃபர் எடுக்கல. ஏன்னா மாமா வந்து இப்போதான் தப்பு பண்ணல, நீங்களும் எடுத்துக்காமா.
So another key aspect of the case is that Tangaraju was first offered 20 years by the prosecution as part of a plea bargain, which he refused because he thought he could prove his innocence in court. So he decided to fight. And then he was offered 15 years and eventually 12 years. If he had taken that plea bargain, Tangaraju would be out in 3 years because he's already been in prison for 9 years. And the reason he didn't take it, according to the family, is because his lawyer said, we've already almost won 85%. Do you want to give in now or you want to keep fighting? And so he trusted that the lawyer would be able to secure his life and that he would be able to walk free. And so he continued to fight. So that's the other thing that we keep coming across in death penalty cases, is when the stakes are so high that if you are found guilty or sentenced to death, many people can also feel like they have to plead guilty just to get a lower sentence that's not death. So even if you are innocent, the stakes of trying to fight it are so high. In any other case, you can say, I'll fight, and then if I lose, well, I'll go for 5 years or 6 years, but I want to try and prove my innocence. But with the death penalty case, even if you are innocent, it is so terrifying to try and prove it in court the way that Tangaraju was. And so a lot of people might accept plea deals of 20 years, 15 years, just because they don't want the risk that they might be sentenced to death. So that's another really key issue to think about. Clemency, please.
இப்போ நம்ம வந்து கிளெமென்சி பெட்டிஷன் கொடுக்குறது வந்து ரெசிடென்ட் உள்ள வந்து பார்க்கணும், அவங்க கைக்கு போகணும். ஏன்னா இதுக்கு முன்னாடி எம்ப்ளாய்ஸ் வந்து அந்த கிளெமென்சி கொடுக்கும்போது ஆன் த ஸ்பாட் வந்து 12 கேசஸ் வந்து டிஸ்மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டாங்க வித்வுட் எனி ரீசன். அந்த அது ஸோ அதான் எனக்கு தெரியல. அவங்க ஒன் ஷாட் அப்படியே டிஸ்மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. அவங்களே வந்து ரெசிடென்ட் படிச்சாங்களா, ஸோ என்ன ஆச்சு ஏதாச்சும் தெரியல. ஸோ அதுதான்
legal case So what Subha is saying is that now the clemency letters that the family and members of the public are going to submit today, they want assurance that the President will open and read each one of them and consider it seriously. Because so many clemency petitions have been submitted over the past many years for people on death row, and often they are dismissed immediately, and the family doesn't even know whether these clemency letters are read and taken seriously and considered by the President and the office with the gravity that it deserves. And reasons are never given to the family for why a clemency petition is rejected. my brother has not done anything wrong. I really urge the court to relook at his case from the beginning, and we would be very grateful for them to do so.
எனக்கு ஒரு நம்பிக்கை இருக்குது பிரசிடென்ட் வந்து இந்த கிளெமென்சி நம்ம கொடுக்குற பெட்டிஷனை வந்து படிப்பாங்க அப்படின்னு படித்து இது வந்து கோர்ட்டுக்கு போனால் தான் வந்து அவங்க அதை ரிவ்யூ பண்ணுறதுக்கு வழி எங்களுக்கு கிடைக்கும். ஸோ அவனுக்கு வந்து இந்த கோர்ட் வந்து பார்க்கணும் அவங்களோட கேஸை திருப்பி. ஸோ இது வந்து அவங்க செஞ்சானா இல்லையான்னு திருப்பி ஒரு வாட்டி வந்து அவங்க பார்த்து அப்புறம் அவனுக்கு இதே தண்டனை கொடுக்கறதா தான் அதை நாங்கள் அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிக்கிறோம். இது வந்து இப்போ கொடுத்தது வந்து அநியாயமாக என்னன்னு வந்து நமக்கு தெரியாது. ஆனால் ஒழுங்காக வந்து பார்க்கல எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச வரைக்கும். ஸோ இந்த கேஸை வந்து திருப்பி ஒழுங்காக அதை ரிவ்யூ பண்ணி எல்லா எவிடன்ஸும் ப்ரொடியூஸ் பண்ணி திருப்பி அதை வந்து A to Z பார்த்தோம்.
So I have a lot of faith that the President will take his clemency petition seriously, and I want her to I don't know if it's possible, but I want her to tell the courts to relook at his case from the beginning. The reason that we are so distressed is because there's a lot of things that he wanted to raise and we wanted to raise before the court that never got its day in court. He never had that fair hearing. If they relook at all of it to our satisfaction, really let him make his case, consider all the evidence and hear out all our points, and then they give him the same sentence, we'll accept it. At this point, we just don't feel he's had a fair trial.
ரெஸ்கியூ ஆர்டர் வந்து இந்த 2 நாளுக்குள்ளே கிடைச்சா நல்லது. ஏன்னா வெனஸ்டே வந்து அவங்க ஊரில் போகணும்னு ஒரு இது வந்துட்டு. ஸோ அதனால் இந்த சீக்கிரம் செஞ்சால் நல்லது. ரெசிடென்ட் இதை படிக்கணும். நம்ம கொடுத்துட்டு அதை வந்து சும்மா அவங்க தூக்கி போடுறது இல்லை. அந்த உள்ளே தொடர்ந்து படித்து நம்ம கொடுத்த கண்டிஷனை இந்த மனு வந்து ஏற்றுக்கணும். ஸோ அதுதான் நான் கேட்குறேன். இந்த கவர்மெண்ட்டை கேட்குறது அதுதான். அதை திருப்பி எடுத்து படித்து ஒரு நல்ல பதில் கொடுக்கணும் எல்லாமே.
I urge the President and the government to take his petition seriously. His petition deserves to be accepted. Yeah, they cannot just collect these letters and throw them away. They have to consider this seriously. And because the execution is scheduled for Wednesday, we really don't have time. They have to pay attention to this and give it the attention that it deserves.
அவனுக்கு கிடைச்ச கடைசி கிரிமினல் மோஷனோட அந்த அப்பீலும் முடிஞ்சு. அதுதான் அவன் தனியாக தான் அதை செஞ்சான். ஏன் அது செய்கிறப்ப அவனுக்கு ஒரு லாயர் கொடுக்கல. கோர்ட் வந்து அவனுக்கு அந்த 394H அந்த இது கொடுக்குறப்ப இந்த கிளெமென்சி செய்யலாம் அப்படின்னு அவனுக்கு ஒரு அப்பீல் கொடுக்குறப்ப நீ அதை எப்படி தனியாக செஞ்ச முடியும்? இன்னைக்கு இது எப்படி தனியாக செய்ய முடியும்? அவனுக்கு ஒரு லாயர் கொடுத்துருக்கணும். சரி, அவனுக்கு வந்து சொந்தமாக லாயர் இல்லாட்டி அட்லீஸ்ட் ஒரு கவர்மெண்ட் லாயர் வச்சு கொடுத்துருக்கணும். கொடுக்காம அதை வந்து அவங்க சொந்தமாக செய்ய சொல்லி அதையும் வந்து டிஸ்மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டாங்க. ஸோ அது எப்படி வந்து ஏற்றுக்க முடியும்? அதுதான் என்னோட கேள்வி.
So after the first appeal that every accused person is entitled to in court, for capital, in his case, he wanted to bring another application about all these issues in his case, which he brought in December last year. And that case was dismissed in February this year. Now, what Leela is raising is that the family hunted for a lot of lawyers and tried to get him legal representation for this application. And this application is often a death row prisoner's last chance. Yeah, it's called the 394H application, and there are rules that you can only bring it one time, as in you're only entitled to it once, and after that the court is not obliged to consider further such applications. Now, it's really distressing to Leela and her family that he was not given a lawyer for this application, and that she feels that if the accused person, the prisoner is not able to find a lawyer, the government should give them one, because legally you are allowed and you have a right to bring such an application. Why don't you have a right to a lawyer to represent you for such an application? So in the end, Tangaraju had to represent himself, and he had to do all the paperwork himself and file this himself, and it was dismissed summarily, which means it wasn't given a hearing per se, and it was dismissed. And so now he has used up that one chance without a lawyer, and that this is not fair. He should be entitled to have any appeal or challenge he wants to bring heard with the presence of a lawyer who represents him. Kokila also wants to raise that they had previously approached a lawyer who told the family to wait 3 years because he was busy with other cases, and he committed that after that he would file this appeal for Tangaraju. So she just wants the people to know that he didn't file this appeal just at the last minute because there was no case before. It's just that the family was waiting for up to 3 years for this lawyer to fulfill his commitment, which he was eventually unable to, and so Tangaraju decided that he had no choice but to go ahead and do it on his own. Now I'll invite Nazira, who's a sister of Naziri, to address you.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello? Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tangaraju. My brother was executed on the 22nd of December. It was last year. Okay. Next July, 22nd July last year. Yeah. It's almost a year now. Okay. I am very, very upset about so many things about what's going on to our system. Let me tell you about my brother's background. We came from a very poor family. My dad died at the age of 45 years old. He served the British Army. And my mom is a washerwoman. And we grew up like a wild plant. Unfortunately, my brother Nazri bin Lajem fell into the wrong company and friends. He took drug at the age of 14. Throughout his whole years in and out of prison. Okay, and we are used without him around most of the time. But that doesn't matter. But what shocking me now, I was very disappointed with our government system that the supplier who supplied drugs to my brother, and my brother gave him 20,000, he was given only a life sentence. My brother is hanged. The reason being that even our Shanmugam Prime Minister says that he cooperated with the CID, that he got a certificate of cooperation. My brother told me that he also cooperated with CID, but the certificate of cooperation is not transparent. What he cooperated with CID, we did not know. And before the trial, I was expecting my brother to get a life sentence, and I appealed to Halimah Datuk 3 times for clemency. He was denied. Okay, during the hearing, I was so shocked. My brother told me that during the CID interview him, he was coerced by the CID, that CMB, that you should admit this possession is yours, so that you get a life sentence. And when my brother brought up in the hearing in front of the judge refused to believe my brother. That's one thing. Second thing, what I don't understand, the double standard of our government is that a supplier was given a life sentence, my brother was hanged, which should be more punishable. It's a supplier, should be more punishable than my own brother. My brother is a drug addict, he's the age of 64 years old. Why should you hang an old man? Why was he given a life sentence? Where is the fairness? Tell me, where? A supplier should be hanged, not be a life sentence. The judge says that he's only a courier. If he is a courier, he shouldn't be given except 10,000 from my brother. My brother gave him 10,000, and the judge said he's only a courier. He's not a supplier. So what do you think about this case? You tell me, and eventually, after so much help from the TGC who helped me doing my lowest point, appeal to the government, appeal to the president, he went denied, he put on the death ear. My brother was eventually hanged on the 22nd of July, which I'm very, very sore about that, because this government, this system doesn't work at all. That's why I'm very, very unhappy about this. The system is very unfair, especially when you're poor. Even I hire a lawyer for 30,000, it doesn't work at all. I pay the lawyer for 30,000 and I do all type of work, appeal, it doesn't work at all. Eventually my brother was hanged at the age of 64. He's an old man, yes. He has a child, one child who lost a father. After what Kokila told me about Tangaraju case, I find it very ridiculous. Why the 3% was scot-free, right? Was scot-free and he's been hanged. I don't see the reason is that. What is so ridiculous? The 3 persons who are involved walk free just like that. Whereas this Tangaraju, there's no case against him. The phone number doesn't belong to him. The drug doesn't belong. It's not found in his body, and it was hanged. Come on, what is this? It's so ridiculous, no? What kind of system we are having right now?
Indeed. Something that really stands out to us is also that, in Thangraju's case, in Naziri's case, and quite a few others on death row, like Saeed Suhail and Abdul Kahar, who was executed last year, all of them were children when they were first arrested and put in prison. They all started using drugs between the ages of 12 and 16, and from then on, they spent the rest of their lives in and out of prison. And Leela has talked about this, Nazira has talked about this, they have barely seen their loved ones except through a glass pane in prison. In Leela's case, when we left, when she came out of the prison visit the other day, the officer who coordinates the visit came out and spoke to her like they were long lost friends. And I asked her about it, and she said she's been coordinating my visits for 27 years. So that is the system that claims that it's a harm prevention one, where young people lose their entire lives within 4 walls. And every time they come out, they are not given any support, and eventually they relapse because they don't have any resources or any way of adapting to life outside, and then they're punished for it again. So we'll take questions now from the media. So if you would like to ask a question, members of the public are also welcome to ask questions. But if you're the media, please identify yourself and then who you would like to pose the question to. So I'll translate what Leela said first. There's so much I could tell you about my brother. He's well loved by everyone. You try and ask anybody, nobody has a bad word to say about him. Anyone who knows him. He has sacrificed a lot for our family. Even though he's had so many challenges himself, he's always so affectionate to us and asking what help we want and what he can do for us. And he has helped me so much in the little time that he's been out of prison. If he goes to work, he will give me money and support me and the family. And he's never gotten to have a life, he never got married, he's never had children. And Subha also added that, to him, Leela's kids, so Subha and his siblings are his kids. And he supported Leela and the family with everything from, finding the funds for Leela's marriage, supporting her through her childbirth and having kids. And he's done everything for the family. And he sacrificed so much for all of them. And anyone will tell you he's such a great man. It's a question here.
Good afternoon. I am Joel Nito from BTC News. You mentioned, Ms. Leela, that you had a chance to visit your brother just a few days ago, and it's from behind a glass window in prison. Could you give us more details about what happened? What was his position? What did he tell you? And how does he feel about what could possibly happen on next day?
எக்ஸிக்யூஷன் நோட்டீஸ் வந்து விசிட் போயிருக்கீங்க. அப்போ வந்து அப்போ எப்படி இருக்காங்க, என்ன சொல்கிறாங்க, அவங்க வந்து இதுக்கு எப்படி ரெஸ்பாண்ட் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க, என்ன மாதிரி நிலைமை இருக்காங்க?
நாங்கள் இப்போ பிரேக் பார்த்தோம். ஏன்னா மம்மி வந்து ஸ்ட்ரிக்டாக பண்ணக்கூடாதுன்னு சொல்லிட்டு அவங்க நம்ம இருக்கிறது ரொம்ப பிரேக்காக இல்லை ப்ரைவேட். அப்போ தான் வந்து உங்களை பற்றி சொன்னப்ப உங்கள்கிட்ட வந்து ஹெல்ப் பண்ணி கேட்டு சொன்னாங்க அந்த என்ன எவிடன்ஸ் கொடுக்கும்போது. ஸோ நீ ஆனால் அவன் என்னன்னா நான் பண்ணாத தப்புக்கு நான் போகிறேன் பரவாயில்ல ஆகலாம் இருக்கான் நான் செய்யாத இருக்குன்னா அவங்க கொஞ்சம் இது பண்ணுவாங்க. ஆனால் அவங்க இப்போ இருக்க தைரியம் கொடுத்து தான் இருக்காங்க மம்மிக்கு.
He puts up a brave front for his sister, for my mother, she said, because he doesn't want her to break down. So he always just says, we'll keep trying, we'll do what we can. He has mentally prepared himself for this day to come, but he does feel that there is a great injustice in him being executed for something that he didn't do, but he says that he trusts in God and that he believes there will be justice, and he is supporting us to do whatever we can to try and still stop this execution, also because he wants us to feel strong and like we have done everything we can.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm also a part-time of Leela. Tangaraju is my nephew-in-law. Alright? Okay. I would like to stand as evidence that yes, I have recommended a few lawyers to Madam Leela, and all of them have been turned down just by seeing that, oh, we cannot do this, without even seeing the actual fact. Tangaraju had many evidence was not brought forward to court, and this is the truth. I plead to the presidency to hear us out. We have been taught not to kill animals, and why are you taking out lives? Taking out lives. Can you stop this jurisdiction of death penalty? It's unfair. Hear us out. Madam Leela has been fighting for 27 years in and out with all her means. She's not from a very rich family. She's not a millionaire. So it's Najmin's case. Hear us out. We want justice. We want to have this stop. In 2 days' time, this jurisdiction should be stopped and hear us out. We appeal to the presidency to put up all the evidence that Madam Leela had to reopen the case from the scratch and give her a lawyer, appoint a lawyer for her, because she cannot go around and ask for a lawyer. None will come forward. We want the president to appoint a lawyer to take up this case from the scratch.
This is the innocent life doing, innocent life showing. Upon all the evidence has been heard, being brought forward, if she thinks this is what she can do, with open heart, we will accept. Right? So, we want justice first. We want justice. 27 years has been fighting. It's easy to offer someone within 27 minutes to them. It's not fair. Singapore law got to change. This jurisdiction got to change. There's so many lives that have been taken without proper investigation. And someone who carries 499.9, just 0.1 gram, and he has been given more than that. Which is right, am I right?
No, the case is actually that he had 1,000 of grams. The
1,000
amount that
grams,
Tangaraju was charged with,
Yes.
and he was found with that amount, but he was only charged with 499.9 so that it doesn't incur the death penalty.
Yes, correct. But there's no proper investigation done. You see, the law not hearing. And the last application that he did by himself, he was pushed to do because it is his last chance that if he cannot push and no one is going to hear him out, the last application should be just redundant with, and should give him one more application. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the press? Yeah, there's one in the back.
I'm from Sabah. Just because I mean, like, know that so-called record has actually turned down the president has actually also turned down the petition. Even then, let's say, I'm not trying to belittle this, but let's say you don't success, let's say what you do later, the next petition, the next petition that you have put in, what if it's not successful? Will the family continue to actually try to call for reform to the justice system or whatever? Since what actually brought forward so much against about the justice
Do you
system.
mean if the execution goes ahead?
Yeah, and the appeal later, and it's
Yeah,
not
it's
successful.
not
Will the
successful.
family continue to actually so-called call for reform to justice apart from the cases?
நம்ம அப்புக்காக ஃபைட் பண்ணுறோம்ல வென்ஸ்டே இந்த எக்ஸிக்யூஷன் நடக்குது ஸோ இந்த கிளெமென்சி பெட்டிஷனும் தோற்றுச்சுன்னா இப்போ போடுற கிளெமென்சி பெட்டிஷனும் தோற்றுச்சுன்னா எக்ஸிக்யூஷன் நடந்துச்சுன்னா அதை தாண்டியும் நீங்கள் வந்து இங்கே உள்ள சட்டம் கோர்ட்ஸ்லாம் பிரச்சனை இருக்குது மாற்றம் வரணும்னு இன்னும் நீங்கள் தொடர்ந்து போராடுறீங்களா இல்லை இந்த கேஸ் முடிஞ்சோடனே நீங்கள் வந்து அந்த போராட்டம் உங்களுக்கு நின்றுமா அப்படின்னு கேட்குறாங்க நீங்கள் இன்னும் இந்த ஜஸ்டிஸ் சிஸ்டமோட ப்ராப்ளம்ஸ்லாம் இவ்வளோ இருக்கு இல்லையா ஸோ அது மாறணும்னு அதுக்காக நீங்கள் என்ன போராடுறீங்களான்னு கேட்குறாங்க அங்கே வந்து இங்கே உள்ள லோக்கல் பெட்ரோல்
கண்டிப்பாக அப்படி ஒரு அநியாயம் என் தம்பிக்கு நடந்துச்சுன்னா இன்னொரு ஆளுக்கும் அந்த அநியாயம் நடக்கக்கூடாது. அதுக்கு வந்து நான் கண்டிப்பாக போராடுவேன்.
Definitely, if such an injustice happens to my brother, I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody else, so we will continue to fight. Any other questions? From the public or audience, perhaps? You're also welcome to share your thoughts or comments. It doesn't have to be a question. And if anyone would like to offer words of encouragement or support and solidarity to the family, please do. Or if anyone else from the family would like the mic, I know many of you are here, please use this opportunity to speak. We won't turn the camera onto you. அப்போ ஃபேமிலியிலேருந்து ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் யாராவது பேச விரும்புறீங்கன்னா பேசுங்க கேமரா வந்து உங்களை கவர் பண்ணுறது இதுதான் பாயிண்ட் ஸோ எல்லாருக்கும் ஏதாவது சொல்லிக்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறீங்கன்னா அப்பு பற்றி ஏதாவது சொல்லணும் இல்லை அப்பு கேஸ் பற்றி ஏதாவது சொல்லணும்னா இப்போ நீங்கள் சொல்லிக்கலாம் She would like the mic here in front.
justice for my brother. And I'm sad to hear about Madam's brother, the injustice that has been done to you. Hopefully we can find some solution to this legal matter. Okay, and I plead the President to give this a thought and look into this matter. Even if it's not this, Madam Leela's brother or Madam
Nas.
Madam Nas' brother, maybe in the upcoming cases.
Yeah.
But as for now, I plead to the President to reopen this case and give Tangaraju a new lease of life. Maybe if he can get off the gallows, okay, maybe a life sentence for the chance that was given to me previously. At least we can still see him alive. Okay, for the sake of Madam please do this for us. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, and we are very, very grateful to all of you for being here to support the family which is in distress, awaiting a good news that can come to them. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, one second. Can I just ask the TGC team if it's possible to see if you can increase the volume of the mic? Or
This is the next.
is the next? Okay. Alright. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, I have a question. Is that okay, the previous time when Tangaraju was given 20 years, 15 years,
Then 12.
and 12 years, why not then a death penalty?
So that's
Is
it's called the plea bargain,
Plea bargain.
which is typically something that the prosecution or the government's lawyers will offer an accused person to say if you plead guilty now, this is the lower sentence we'll give you.
Okay, so
Right? But if you want to fight the case, go to trial because you believe you're innocent, we will ask for a higher penalty. And so then the mandatory death penalty comes into effect. So in capital cases which carry the mandatory death penalty, the only way that someone doesn't get the death penalty, because it's mandatory, right, is if they're charged with a lower amount than what they're caught with. So the prosecution will come to an agreement that, okay, yes, we caught you with 1 kg of drugs or 2 kgs of drugs or whatever, but we will offer you 499.9 grams if you're willing to plead guilty.
So now they already offered that, right? Then. And now they are offering this just because he had appealed.
Just
Right.
because he decided to go to trial.
To go into trial. Just because he thinks that he is innocent. He fought for justice. And that justice brought him to death penalty? A big question mark. So, President should see this. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like the mic? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chloe from Vice, and I just wanted to ask, how does it feel having fought for your brother for 20-something years and so many in prison? Has this taken a toll on you emotionally, mentally?
இப்போ 27 வருஷமா உங்க தம்பியை வந்து ஜிம்மில் பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கீங்க, போயிட்டு வந்துட்டு இருக்கீங்க, அவருக்காக ஃபைட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கீங்க இந்த லாஸ்ட் 9 இயர்ஸாக பேசிட்டு, அது உங்களை இருக்கிற அளவுக்கு இத்தனை வருஷமா இந்த போராட்டத்தில் உங்களை எப்படி பாதிச்சிருக்கு? இமோஷனலாக, மென்டலாக, உங்கள் லைஃப்பில் என்ன பாதிப்பு?
ஸோ அவள் செஞ்சிருந்தா நான் வந்து அதை அக்செப்ட் பண்ணிடுவேன். அவன் செஞ்சான், அவன் கையோட குடிப்பட்டான். ஆனால் அவன் கையில் ஒன்றுமே இல்லாதப்ப அவனுக்கு குடிப்பட்டு உள்ள போய் இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு சார்ஜ் ஃபேஸ் பண்ணுறது தான் இதெல்லாம் எடுத்துக்கணும்.
ஸோ இந்த 9 இயர்ஸாக நீங்கள் வந்து லாயர் நீங்கள் பேசி படிச்சு வச்செல்லாம் பண்ணிக்கணும். அது அப்புறம் உங்களுக்கு அது வந்து நிறைய அது உங்களுக்கு வந்து உங்கள் லைஃப் எப்படி இமோஷனலாக பாதிச்சிருக்கு இந்த இந்த கேபிட்டல் கேஸ்
லைஃப் எதுவும் பாதிப்பு இல்லை.
உங்களோட லைஃப் இமோஷனலாக உங்களுக்கு எந்த அளவுக்கு எஃபெக்ட் பண்ணும்? டெத் பெனல்ட்டி கேஸ் பண்ணுறது says like all these years it wasn't such a serious case, right? So I coped with it, made sure we visited him in prison, and maintained that relationship. And it's just now it's very difficult to accept because he was not caught red-handed with drugs on him, and yet this is what he's facing. So it's just not something that we can accept. And then Subha also said that it's been very the families had a lot of grief because they cannot be with their uncle because he's been taken from them and kept in prison all these years. And that he was the one who was supporting their education and supporting the family's expenses when he was outside. So it has affected the family financially too. And like Subha started going to work soon after he was arrested because she had to start supporting the family instead. And then it also affected their studies because they were in so much distress. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to, maybe she's fighting for her brother, so she doesn't know how much she's going through. But I was with her throughout all this while, seeing lawyers, meeting lawyers. Okay, I think she's a depression patient. She's medically depressed. Financially, she's very down. Yeah, she's very, very down. I know we went to many lawyers, we paid, we were rejected by many lawyers because of judgments, whether we will be able to pay them. So I would say that if she said that she doesn't feel anything because she doesn't know, because she went up throughout fighting for the brother, but she went through a lot. She doesn't have time with the 5 children. She had spending visitations. She shows all the stress to the children. I think the children that felt it, they will definitely know. They went to school, they went to work. Some of them are working and studying and working. So the children have missed their childhood. Her children have missed a childhood. So I feel Apu was there, helping them financially. He was like the man of the house, and he should be given a chance to look into for a stay execution. After that, whatever judgment comes by, we will, willingly take it. Because I felt personally when I went there to talk to all the lawyers, some of the, as mentioned, okay, they are telling the lawyer, which the first lawyer failed, he did not speak in the trial, so it's not fair for them. They are laymen. That is why we are taking a professional, right? A doctor only will know what is wrong with to diagnose a patient. A lawyer should advise us. They are laymen. They don't even. I went with her all the way because she doesn't even know what is written in the papers. To explain each and everything, even writing the lawyers, looking into the affidavit, getting his statements, she doesn't understand. So a chance must be given to the family, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you. Would anyone else like the mic?
I was just going to ask, since we have multiple members of the press here today, if any of the family members of both Mila and Nazura, is there any particular message, now that you have this opportunity to speak to the press, is there any particular message that you would like to really emphasize to them?
Media directly இந்த வாய்ப்பு கிடைச்சிருக்கிறதுனால மீடியா மூலமா பப்ளிக்கும் எல்லாருக்கும் நீங்க என்ன சொல்லிக்க விரும்புறீங்க, ஏதாவது மெசேஜ் சொல்லிக்க விரும்புறீங்களா?
யார் என்ன தப்பு பண்ணாலும் தைரியமே யாருக்கும் அது மட்டும் எதை கடவுள் நம்ம உண்மையில அவசரமாக இருக்கக்கூடாது. அவங்க என்ன கஷ்டப்பட்டாங்க, என்ன தப்பு பண்ணாலும் அவங்களுக்கு சென்டென்ஸ் அப்போ லைஃப் சென்டென்ஸும் தூக்கம் இருக்கு, அதுக்கு லைஃப் சென்டென்ஸும் பரவாயில்ல சூப்பர்.
No matter what wrong anyone does, please don't kill anybody and don't give anyone the death sentence or hang them. There is God to decide when we live and when we die. And there are many other ways to seek justice, just don't take someone's life.
that happened to mankind. The hardest punishment it should be seen is only a life sentence. Because I always believe that nobody can take a one's life except God. I believe that, okay? They are government, they are human beings too, they cannot take one's life just like that. Okay, I hope in future the government will abolish this hanging system because our neighboring countries has abolished the system. Especially when you love somebody, it's your own family who died this way. Very cruel thing to do.
And one of the things that continues to strike me with all the death row families that we've worked with is how low families' expectations are of our justice systems and of our society. Like they keep saying, let them just relook at the case, and then if they're given the death penalty, we'll accept it. That's how little faith they have that their loved one's life, which is what we desperately want back, can be saved. We have come to expect so little. They keep saying, everyone keeps saying, just give them a life sentence. We'll continue to visit them till they die in prison. No one is asking for their family members to walk free. I mean, we ask for that. Yeah? But this is how little the people expect from our government and our systems. Okay, so if there are no other questions, any burning questions anyone else has or comments? If not, we'll close this segment. And so thank you all for being here and for listening and bearing witness to the pain of the family and their struggle for justice that continues, like you can see in Nazira's case, even after her brother has been executed. So all of them care deeply about everyone on death row and everyone who is fighting for justice. So it means a lot to the family and to everyone, to all of us that we're here with us today. So the family, Nazira, TJC members will be around to do any media interviews after this, but now we'll move into the letter writing segment.